Greetings, subjects. Welcome back to Disenthrall. I will be Patrick Smith. Quick one for you here today. I wanted to show this thing that blew my mind upon waking up today. I rolled over, I grabbed my phone. It's probably a bad habit, but one of the first things I do is check to see if there's any crazy news happening that day that I need to sort of cover or work on across the Disenthrall platform. And today, James Freeman's YouTube channel shared this video of a cop that I wanted to show you, sort of repost and comment on. It blew my mind.
To make this video, I've been in law enforcement for 10 years, and I'm speaking to my peers, other fellow officers, people in any kind of law enforcement position. I've seen officers nationwide enforcing tyrannical orders against the people, and I'm hoping it's the minority of officers, but I'm not sure anymore, because every time I turn on the television, every time I look to the internet, I'm seeing people arrested or cited for going to church, for traveling on the roadways, for going surfing, opening their businesses, going to the park with their families.
It is the majority of cops.
Or doing nails out of their own house, using their own house as a place of business, and having undercover agents go there and arrest them and charge them with what? With a crime? I don't know what crime people are committing by doing nails in their own house, but we're seeing this more and more and more, and we need to start looking at ourselves as officers and thinking, is what I'm doing right?
I mean, how amazing is this that we have a cop that is not only having a moment of reflection and self-awareness, but he's also taking time to talk to the other Blue Line gang members to have them actually start analyzing their own actions as individual agents as to whether or not they're moral or not. I was having a conversation recently with Larkin Rose for his it was an exclusive thing for his subscribers over at therosechannel.com, and I mentioned, we were talking about the police sting raid on the nail salon, the at-home nail salon, where these ladies were just offering nail services out of their house during the quarantine against the Texas tyrannical judge orders. And I was just remarking on how absurd it must be to be a cop right now and be asked or ordered or expected to run a sting operation on ladies doing nails in their houses. Like, doesn't that wake anybody up? Doesn't it? And Larkin commented saying that, the tyrants always mess up when they start getting this close to winning. They start getting a little too excited, a little too greedy, and they start reaching a little bit too far, too fast, and it ends up backfiring. And I think that's what we're starting to see here. And guys, this is amazing. This is exciting. This is what I woke up to today, and I just wanted to share it with you to make sure you saw it. When I asked if there were any cops that would question the absurdity of what they're doing these days, well, we found one. Let's continue.
I want to remind you that regardless of where you stand on the coronavirus, we don't have the authority to do those things to people just because a mayor or a governor tells you otherwise. I don't care if it's your sergeant or your chief of police. We don't get to violate people's constitutional rights because somebody in our chain of command tells us otherwise. It's not how this country works.
It's not how ethics work. Now, I don't know this guy. I don't know who he is or where James Freeman got this video from. I wish somebody would let me know because he deserves to be followed. He deserves probably an interview. I'd be happy to talk to him and talk through this stuff. I wonder how far this epiphany he's having goes. I wonder if he realizes that these laws demanding, stay at home and business closures, and which are all victimless crime laws. I wonder if he realizes that the arguments he's making against these absurdities go for all victimless crime laws. I wonder. I hope I could talk to him. So if somebody knows who this guy is, let me know.
Those are de facto arrests. We're violating people's rights and taking money from them, or even worse, arresting them and depriving them of their freedom when they are exercising their constitutional rights. So let's talk about that. Let's read something right here off of the Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal. Among these, we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their power from the consent of the governed, meaning our power and any government official's power is derived from the people. Okay? We don't hold power over our citizens. It's contradictory to everything that our country stands for.
It's contradictory to almost everything that this guy must do as a matter of course in his job. I mean, I'm super excited and proud that this guy's waking up. I've never heard a cop talk like this before.
And this is what I'm seeing. First Amendment rights, telling people they can't go to church, freedom of religion. Okay? Telling people they can't protest, freedom of assembly. Fourth Amendment violations, illegal traffic stops to check for papers. What are you, the Gestapo? Is this 1930s Nazi Germany? You don't get to stop people unless you have reasonable suspicion or probable cause that they have committed a crime. And I know people that have personally been stopped saying, we want to see papers showing that you're essential.
David 2, copy a phone call.
That is not how our job works, okay? What really has been pissing me off lately is the fact that these officers that are going out here and enforcing these tyrannical orders, what they're doing is they're making my job and my safety, or they're putting my job and my safety at risk. Because what you're doing is you're widening the gap between public trust and law enforcement officers. And
this guy is nailing it. He's absolutely nailing it. Yes. When you join a gang that oppresses people and hurts innocent people, as a matter of course, that is your day job. Naturally, people are going to start to see you as the enemy. Naturally, rightfully, they're going to see you as the enemy. He's realizing. So exciting.
And what that's going to do is it's going to, I mean, look at what's happened to law enforcement in the last 10 years. Less and less public trust, and more often than not, that is a result of isolated incidents that get blown out of proportion. Well, they're not isolated anymore. They're happening every single day.
You know, I say this often, and I'm going to keep saying it. If I wanted to bring to you news of all of the police murder and injustice and abuse, it would just be a nonstop flood of your YouTube notifications every day of your life. Like I could just spam you I think I'm pretty confident that I could give you 3 stories a day easily every day of your life. And not just little stories, like major disgusting evils done by these men every day. And he's realizing.
And the thing that I want you guys to realize is that our power that we hold as law enforcement officers, it's nothing more than a facade. It's a badge and a gun. And people, you don't realize, if you haven't lived in anarchy, if you haven't seen combat, things can be stripped from people in a heartbeat. And that's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that these actions are going to wake a sleeping giant, i.e. the American people. Okay?
I mean, I hate to tell you, but it's already happening. Like it's you're kind of a little late with this realization. It's a little bit too late. I think maybe 5-10 years ago you had a chance.
They are going to be put in a position where they won't have their rights trampled anymore. And
I know personally a not short list of people that have already made that stand in their mind. And all it's going to take is for some tyrant in a blue costume and a badge to cross their line, to initiate force against them, you know, having hurt no one. They are peaceful people. They're not hurting anyone or damaging any property. But they're done. They are done. I'm telling you, we're already there.
Law enforcement officers we'll have our ability to enforce the law stripped from us in about 10 minutes. Okay? I think what is going to happen if this continues is we're going to see bloodshed in the streets. Okay? I don't want to see bloodshed in the streets on either side of this coin. I don't want to see fellow officers get injured or killed, and I certainly don't want to see citizens get injured or killed.
Consider for a moment that it's not the general citizenry, quote unquote, that is constantly driving around, pulling cops over, harassing them, jailing them, shooting them, etc., etc. It's the police doing all of this. So it's not the general citizenry's job or problem to de-escalate. They're not the one initiating. I'm not talking about the criminals here. Anyone, blue costume, badge, or otherwise, has the right to go after a criminal and do whatever necessary to make them no longer be doing criminal things. There's nothing special about the costume, the badge, or the title police officer that allows you to go after a bad guy. Anybody has the right to go after bad people, hurting people, actually damaging property. So it's not the general public's job to de-escalate these situations. It's the police doing the aggressing. It's their job to de-escalate. The only way this doesn't turn into blood in the streets one day, and I think he's right, it's going to happen, is for the police to realize, to take personal, individual, moral culpability and responsibility for their own actions, the actions that they do, without trying to defer responsibility to the chain of command and just following orders and just doing my job. The only way this doesn't go the way this guy's talking about is if they take personal responsibility and realize and evaluate each and every one of their own actions against their own moral compass. And what that means is, does that random dude on the street have the right to threaten deadly force to pull someone over because they jaywalked? They didn't hurt anybody. They didn't endanger anybody. It's not like they ran out in a busy street and almost caused an accident, whatever. I'm talking peaceful crimes. I'm talking nonviolent. I'm talking victimless crimes. No, we don't as individuals have the right to so much as touch a person for doing that, much less do what the cops do every day. What I'm saying is that the only way this gets de-escalated is for the cops to start applying their own to start putting their own moral judgments above chain of command, above all of this stuff. Realize that normal average people don't have the right to do this stuff, and therefore the blue costume and the badge and the gun cannot grant that right. If government derives its just powers from the consent of the governed, that means that the government can have no just powers that the individuals granting that consent and that power and that supposed authority do not have. If I do not have the right to accost peaceful people that are hurting no one, then no one does. No government, no chain of command, no costume and badge and title can grant that. If the government actually derives its just powers from the consent of the governed. Which, of course, it does not these days.
And I promise you, most of you out there doing these tyrannical acts against our citizens, you're not ready for combat. You're not mentally or physically ready for combat in the first place. I promise you, you don't want to go through that. And I hope I never have to go through that again. You don't get to just say, well, I'm doing this because I was told to do so, or I'm following orders, or I need to keep this job. Guess what? I need to keep this job more than anybody. I have 3 young children. I have 2 houses. I have the same sob story that the rest of you guys have. But my personal choices and my living arrangements, no matter what they are, don't allow me to trample on people's rights. And I don't understand why that concept is so hard for people to understand.
Because from birth, through the public schooling system, that is never taught to anyone. In fact, sort of the opposite is taught to them. They are taught to obey authority, starting with authoritarian parents, followed by authoritarian teachers and principals, sit down when you're told to sit down, stand up when you're told to stand up, walk in line like we tell you, request permission to go to the bathroom. You can only go to recess when we tell you can go to recess, and only for the length of time that you can go to recess. And you have to learn what we tell you to learn, study what we tell you to learn, pass the tests that we tell you to pass. It's normal life. It is the state of the universe. It is the nature of the reality that you are presented to as a child. And that's what you grow up in. And that's what you learn is normal. So when you go and you get into a position of power, you become that dictator that has rightful authority over others, and you don't question it because that's the entire reality that you've always lived in. It's normal. To question it would be weird. To question it would be extremist. This guy, I can't imagine, is going to have a job much longer. I mean, good on him, though.
Listen, you need to stand up for what's right. You need to, if you're part of a department or an agency that is asking people or asking their officers or their deputies to impose on people's rights and infringe on their freedoms, you need to step up and say, no, that's not me. That's not what I signed up for, and that's going against my oath. And if that costs you your job, so be it. At least you'll be able to look at yourself in the mirror at night. I've already expressed this to my department. And luckily for me, I come from a department that I feel like my chain of command shares my view, but I don't care what department you're part of or what your chain of command thinks. You don't get to trample on people's liberty. And so, as a special operations veteran, I've fought on the streets of Iraq under the U.S. government's guise of freedom. And I'm telling you what, the American people are going to you are going to wake a sleeping giant, and they are going to fight 10 times harder for their freedom on their soil than anything you've ever seen before. And if that's something you're willing to face, then keep trampling on people's rights. But I promise you, the American spirit of defiance is going to rise again, and it's going to be a big problem for our country. So I'll leave you with this, something that I learned as an E-nothing in the Army. No matter what situation you're put in, if you look inside yourself and ask yourself one question, am I doing the right thing? You ask yourself that, you know the answer. And no amount of money or no order or law or anything should be able to make you go against doing the right thing. So I'm imploring officers to look inside themselves and ask themselves, is this what I want to be doing to my citizens? And I think the answer is clear. And if we all stand up together, guess what? It'll be a non-issue, no factor, because people and law enforcement will be united like we should be.
Imagine if the only thing police did was go after the actual bad guys. No victimless crimes. No stupidity around stop sign enforcement or, 5 mile an hour over the speed limit stuff. I mean, if the only thing they did was go after the violent people, the dangerous people, the people that have hurt people, stolen their stuff, aggressed on people, actual criminals. Imagine if that is literally all they did. Imagine how differently you would feel about them when you see one behind you on the road while you're driving or walking up the street. That inner cringe that you feel, that sort of revulsion or, butthole puckering, probably wouldn't be there as much anymore because they're only out for the bad guys. Not for you, you peaceful person. Imagine that. That's the only way this gets de-escalated. I don't know who this guy is. This is amazing that he's waking up, and it speaks to Larkin's point that the tyranny is going too far too fast, and this is their mistake. Such that even their own enforcers are starting to wake up. And I don't know if it's more than one. This guy could literally be the only one. It's certainly the only one I've ever heard talking like this, if he has a job much longer. If you know who this guy is, please let me know. I would love to reach out to him and invite him on for an interview to talk through this stuff because he's there. He's understanding. All right, guys. So now let me finish this video by giving you an example of just such a tyranny. And I like to show people's faces, the faces of the tyrants, the tyrannical evil men, while we talk about them, because People like to hide behind their titles and their jobs. So we've had this lady that runs a salon in Dallas, Texas, and she's been resisting the forced closures enacted by the judges and governor here in Texas. And she refused to close. She stayed open in defiance of the directive. And even when the judge ordered her to stay closed, she stayed open. They arrested her, dragged her in front of a court, and sentenced her to a week in prison plus an extra week for not apologizing. An extra week for not apologizing to the judge for being selfish. Watch this video.
Judge, I would like to say that I have much respect for this court and laws. And that I've never been in this position before. And it's not some place that I want to be. But I have to disagree with you, sir, when you say that I'm selfish. Because feeding my kids is not selfish. I have hairstylists that are going hungry because they'd rather feed their kids. So, sir, if you think the law is more important than kids getting fed, then please go ahead with your decision, but I am not going to shut the salon.
And so, this tyrant, this asshole, this evil man went ahead with his decision and caged her for an extra week for her hubris, for her refusal to apologize for being selfish. He said, quote, apologize, that you owe an apology to the elected officials who you disrespected by flagrantly ignoring and in one case defiling their orders you now know obviously apply to you. He lectured. Quote, that you understand that the proper way in which an ordered society to engage concerns that you might have is to hire a lawyer and advocate for a change, an exception, or an amendment to laws that you find offensive. You have to disobey the way we tell you to, slave, or we will cage you. How ironic, disgusting, tyrannical. I think he'll be quite surprised to find out the way that you actually need to oppose tyrants. We won't talk about that here on YouTube. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching.